Hello, the amazing D365 community. I am Danica Makatangay, your Ms.DynamicMillennial. For this video, we'll be continuing our Neophyte series where we started with the 3 C's of General Ledger modules or the General Ledger set. And we first discussed the 3 C's about currencies. For this time, we'll be discussing calendars. So for us to do that and for us to discuss that, let's continue navigating D365 by navigating our navigation pane modules, General Ledger, calendars. We have two set up for our calendars. It is fiscal calendars and the other one is ledger calendars. And under ledger setup as well, we do have the same setup. Under ledger setup, we also have fiscal calendars and ledger calendars. And when you are on ledger form, you also have the chance to set up or to update, modify your ledger calendar setup. Okay, so let's make use of the ledger of the calendars section or calendars area for us to build, for us to set up our fiscal calendars and our ledger calendars. Okay, so under fiscal calendars, first, what is the difference between these two? Fiscal calendars, ledger calendars. Fiscal calendars, this is where we create our calendar according to the period that the business operates. Ledger calendars, this is where we modify, we update, we limit what are the legal entities, if there are multiple legal entities in D365 environment, and what is or what are the modules that can be accessed by a particular or specific group. So let's talk about first the fiscal calendars. Fiscal calendar, as I have mentioned, this is where we set up the period of a business calendar. So for us to create a new calendar, we click on New Calendar and then enter a code or a calendar name, let's say calendar year or CY, and description for that, and the start of the fiscal year and the end of the fiscal year as well. When we do or design or create our new calendar, it is always based on the current system year where we are creating our calendar. But of course, when we do an implementation, a new one, when we are maintaining a new environment or an implementation to a new client, what we always consider are the historical balances, whether the client would opt to maintain their historical balances in D365 or not. And if they opt to, how many years of their historical balances do they want to maintain in D365? So that's the time that we will need to build or to design or start our calendar year or our fiscal calendar on a different year. So let us say the client would want to enter historical balances, maintain historical balances from their legacy environment to D365 for 3 years. So we'll start with the year 2020. So let me modify this year. And fiscal year name, simple as 2020, whatever name we opt to, so that we could easily determine which that fiscal calendar is for, or what year is that calendar fiscal year is for. And we have our length of period and the unit if it is on a day, month, year period. So normally we do put a month period on it, and let's click create. Okay. What you're going to notice here is that we'll have a somehow 14 periods since we have from period 0 to period 13. The period 0 and the period 13, these are not for operation transactions or for operational transactions of the legal entity or of the company. What does this do? The period 0 is for the opening balances, for the recording of the opening balances from the previous year. The period closing for the period 13, that is the closing period, or that is the period that we run or that we use whenever we run a fiscal year-end close or a year-end close process. And this period 1 to 12, or any period that has operating type in it, would be the period where we normally or where we transact, record our day-to-day transactions. That is how we create a new calendar. How we add a new year to that newly created calendar. Just simply click this new year, and then if we opt as a default as well, we can copy from the last fiscal year the sign of this new year that we would want to create. So I could just say, yes, copy from last fiscal year. And I would create up to, say, year 2024. Okay. So that is how we build our fiscal calendars. The next one is the ledger calendars. So ledger calendars is totally different form with the fiscal calendar, comparing with fiscal calendar. As mentioned earlier, ledger calendars, this is where we can update our period status, and this is also where we can assign user groups, specific user groups for each module, especially during the month and close process, so that no other users would be able to touch that, no other users would be able to access that module for us, so that no other additional transactions would be entered for that specific period. Okay, and notice here that even though I created one for CY or calendar year, there's nothing in here, even from any other periods on the legal entity side. The reason is when I open a duplicate tab for us and I go to the ledger form under general ledger, ledger setup, ledger form, we can see here that the fiscal calendar assigned is new cal. And when I go here and revisit new cal, this is where it has the legal entity section details. This means that new cal is assigned to legal entity USMF. So when I try to reassign this, CY just wanted to show to us that the ledger form is the controlling form wherein it would determine which is the calendar on the ledger calendar, where is it only assigned. On the previous versions, even though there are multiple ledger calendars, uh, the legal entity section would always have something in there. But on the latest recent updates we have for D365, only the fiscal calendar assigned to that specific legal entity would have details on the legal entity section. So right now, since we assigned CY as the fiscal calendar, we now have the legal entity USMF on the legal entities section. Now this period 0 is always permanently closed. The reason is because we don't do any or record any transactions in there as well. So from period 1 to period 12, that is the calendar with the period status. And the period 13 is put on hold since that one is reused for the period close that we have. So let's discuss this period status. We have 3 period status available: open, on hold, and permanently closed. Open, that means it is available for all the transactions that we have, especially if this module access that we have are open for all or not restricted to a specific user group alone. When we put this on hold, even though there is just one specific user group access to this, let's say this group 1, as long as this period is on hold, no one can touch that. No one can enter any transaction in it. And when we do permanently close, that means that we are permanently closing this period for us. But before we can close that, there is this warning message that would pop up asking us if we are really sure to close that. Of course, we don't want to, so let's select no. And that's the only time again that we can revert that back to open. So what I can share, or what we should have in mind, especially when we are doing month end close period, is to always put this period status open and just update the module access to specific user groups for this period so that still we can continuously record transactions like adjustments for the month end close. Okay, so I think that is the basic things that we need to learn. We need to remember about the fiscal calendars and the hour ledger calendars in D365. That's the second C on our three C's of general ledger. The next time we'll talk about chart of accounts, and that's more exciting. Thank you and see you on our next vlog. Bye bye.